Hello and welcome to another episode of Leader Generation brought to you by ModUp. I'm your host, Tessa Burg. And today we have maybe the biggest guest we'll have all year. And it's only, February? I don't even know what happened in January. But we are welcoming Tal Jacobson. He is the CEO at Perion. He has been a part of starting some really incredible, groundbreaking companies in the past, and he has spent time on both the client side, on the tech side, even cut his teeth on the agency side. So today we're going to be talking about how we can navigate a very fast-paced, ever-changing media market. And there's no one better to talk about that than Tal, who has done this across digital media and technology for over 2 decades. Tal, thank you so much for joining us today to have this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
So before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself and the company you are leading now, Perion.
Sure. So I've been doing this online marketing, digital marketing, for almost 30 years. Started in 1997 at a company called Macromedia that I think revolutionized the internet with Flash. And I think a lot of the marketing magic happened in the 90s and 2000 with Flash. Then got acquired by Adobe. Um, and that was the first time I've done I don't know if to call it digital marketing, but I've done marketing at scale, revolutionizing how we've done this before with basically building a way to do mass marketing over fax, which was, when thinking about it now, we're still the same place, right? Figuring out where to fire on client and what's the message. So I've been doing this for almost 30 years, spent some time in Macromedia, then at ICQ, which got acquired by AOL. Um, I worked for an agency, McKinn, which is part of IPG, for a few years, brought digital to that, and then was part of a founding team for a company called SimilarWeb, which we were like 5 people in the room trying to figure out what are we doing here and building this amazing platform, which I know people keep using around the world, which is great. And then a bit over 6 years ago, I've joined a company called Perion, which has been around for almost forever and got pivoted over and over again with M&As. And now we've totally shifted how the company works. We've just announced it a few days ago that we're gonna pull all our technologies into one platform, and we only have one goal. And the one goal is to help CMOs figuring out how to get more out of their budget. We're not trying to replace any DSPs or any other platform. We're just trying to help CMOs get more transparency and a better way of really understanding what's going on across this insanely big and very complex multiverse of channels and platforms and formats. So maybe an extremely long intro, but that's where I am.
No, I think it's important that everyone knows your background because this isn't the first time that you've helped companies, especially companies you've co-founded or helped build, focus on giving users more transparency, better understanding on how their brands are interacting with consumers, with people coming and reaching out to them online. But now you're doing it at a time and in a space that is moving so quickly. And the number one piece of feedback that we get from our clients is, what is my ROI? What is the return on what I'm spending? And there's such a diverse mix. What's the influence and measurement of both? And right now, even though there's like a ton of conversations around AI, as we were talking about before we got on the phone, marketers just really want to know what's working, what's not, what's going to happen as this media landscape continues to get more diverse and the deprecation of third-party cookies. How do you approach that? How do marketing leaders evolve their approach right now in this time and space?
So, when people ask me, is AI going to replace them, or what do they do with AI? How do we get smarter with AI? How do I get better ROI with AI? I usually say, AI is a tool. This is not a replacement. So, yes, within everything we do, we have AI, but we have AI just to, make our work, our daily work better, faster, be able to learn better. The whole thesis behind Perion platform is how do we look at all the different channels and stop wasting so much money by learning what works in each platform, right? So imagine, I don't know what, let's take a random brand. This is not a real example, but let's take, I don't know what, Audi, right? So imagine Audi now launches a new car, a new brand, a new model of car, targeting, I don't know, females at the age of 30 to 60, right? So now different agencies with different teams would need to try to figure out, without speaking to each other, what creative works for women at the age of 30 in New York for a new Audi. So the team that works on the Meta platform would waste a lot of money to figure this out. And then you're going to have a team for YouTube, which is a different team, and then a team on for TikTok or for Pinterest or for CTV or for out of home. But you don't need to waste so much money, right? If you would have just a unified platform, and that's where AI comes in, that can look at the entire data and say, we figured out that women in urban environments like to have images of a car with, I'm just making this up, I have no idea, but maybe two kids in the car and I don't know what, right? So the amount of waste we have because all the platforms are siloed, AI can really figure it out. That's what deep learning means, right? How do I take data and super fast learn what do I need to change? That's really where AI comes in. I don't think AI is going to replace people that do marketing. I think AI is going to make it so much more better. And I think it's just going to reduce a lot of waste.
Yeah, and in your example, you talked about the audience first. And so marketers who are thinking about who is their customer, what do they want to learn about them, how do they want to show up for them, it's still the same approach, but you're eliminating the amount of time spent on trying to understand that audience manually, channel by channel, and trying to aggregate all that data yourself. I still see some people pull things multiple channels into Excel sheets, which double
Yeah.
counts, like even when you look at Google Analytics, this is not giving you exact accurate numbers. And we get that question all the time, like, well, I need these things to add up. Like without AI, like that's very, well, probably impossible, but people are spending so much time thinking about the channel where now this gives you the freedom to continue to focus on the audience and how is your brand showing up for them.
Right. No, I think you're absolutely. I think you touched the most important point. As I said, I've been doing marketing for almost 30 years. The one thing you learn as a marketer is figure out who's your audience, what do you need to tell them, what is the right moment to tell them that, and then they're going to buy. But instead of that, in the past, I don't know, what, 10, 15 years, everybody got obsessed about formats and channels. Okay, so what do you do on CTV? Who cares, right? What do you do in out of home? What do you do in TikTok? Like, really, who cares? It's about how do I optimize to the right audience at the right time with the right message so I would get the best conversions that my company needs. Now, you probably know this, right? CMOs are getting replaced every 18 months. And it's not because of them. I've met some amazing CMOs. It's almost impossible with this huge multiverse of platforms to figure out what actually works, right? I think we should go back to the original, method of marketing. Just figure out your customers. Where do you find them? How do you measure that? Stop talking about channels and platforms. That just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, I agree. So tell us, let's talk a little bit tactical now. How is Perion helping to solve some of these and answer some of these tactical questions about, how am I going to target when third-party cookies are deprecated? What do I do now that there are stricter data privacy and regulations?
Yeah. So, when you think about, everybody is obsessed with cookies, but when you really think about it, you know, cookies are for websites. Websites are not the fastest growing format, right? It's not. So I don't know why people are obsessed with that. There are no cookies on CTV. There are no cookies on social. There are no cookies at out of home. Uh, and websites are not the future. Now, it's true that websites are still here, but with everything with the chat AIs now bypassing search engines, which and search engines aren't the only way to actually get to websites, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Now, having said that, we've built about 3 years ago a predictive algorithm that sits on website called SORT, SORT. It's a deep learning algorithm, and it doesn't know the customer, but it knows behaviors, right? So it would know that if somebody's browsing, surfing on a website at 2 a.m. in New York, and he has a Mac, and he reads about football, he's probably going to buy those specific products, right? So, and this replaces cookies. You don't need to know who's the person. You just need to know how likely would he be to buy that product. Now, I've been saying this for years that cookies just don't make sense. I mean, how many times did you went online, looked for I don't know, for an hotel somewhere, you booked it, and then for the next 2 months, you're seeing banners for that hotel, right? And you already booked it. And that, again, it's a way of wasting money, not optimizing conversions. So it's not like cookies work perfect, but as we progress into that omni-channel, I think cookies are going to be less and less relevant.
So I think you probably just blew some people's minds. I know that I've been saying for years that um, we need to stop being obsessed with the cookie data and ditch PII. Like worked in B2B marketing for a long time. So much of success is measured on, do you have their name? Do you have their email address? What do we know about them? And there is so much untapped behavioral data that you could better understand the audience. Forget names, addresses, titles, understand the behavior at time and place and be there in that moment. So I love hearing that. At the same time, there are a lot of marketers investing a lot in their websites. So I'm just curious, like, how do you see the role of the website evolving? And if we're talking about be there in the right moment, what are some of the new platforms that are going to become more important to deliver on that value?
Right. As we said, it's not about the website or format. It's about human behavior, right? Who are your customers? They're people. And if they're stop or they're using websites less, then that's not the future, right? So maybe they're on TikTok now, maybe they're on Instagram, maybe they're on YouTube. I don't know. It depends on the brand. But where do you find them? And when do you find them in that moment that they would buy, right? So again, maybe you want any a website so they could complete the acquisition. That's fine. But if the website itself is the place you want them to continue to hang, then maybe that's not the strategy.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll also say if listeners are not following Tal, you should find him on LinkedIn. How many? You have like a gazillion followers. Over 11,826 people are already following him. But I think this is a really important conversation, but also validates why great visionary marketers will still have jobs. It doesn't mean ditch your website right now. It means start to understand that audience and start to evolve how and where you show up in the journey. And I know that one thing that we've started to see is, digital out of home is rapidly emerging for all kinds of different clients. I mean, and specifically when we think about digital out of home, and that's different for digital marketers. CTV, adding in these other channels, but looking at it across the landscape and not just being like channel picking. How does Perion help optimize for that audience across those channels and get marketers who these channels might be new to them, get them comfortable with sort of letting go of channel specific tactical execution?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think me personally, I love out of home advertising. We found ads that I think in the US they started at 1830, so 200 years ago in out of home ads. Um, but I think only in the past 10 years it really became accessible to everybody with programmatic out of home, where you can actually add more data layers, no PIIs, but data layers. Like, how would my ad look like when it's raining, right? Or when it's foggy, or where there's a traffic jam? Can I read a lot of text when I'm on my highway and the highway and I'm speeding, or as opposed to heavy traffic, right? So a lot of AI comes into out of home. Now, within our platform, you can actually plan based on your audience, not based on the formats on the platforms, which we're just thinking, how would you find your audience, right?
Mhm.
Out of home is a big part. I think out of home is a big part, especially for local brands or consumer brands. I think out of home is such an untapped opportunity. Not a lot of advertisers are using it yet. I think that's going to be huge. I don't know if you saw the statistics that I think 87% of people still buy in physical stores versus online, and out of home actually drives people to those stores, right? So out of home is huge. CTV, I think it's the first time in history that every small brand or local business can advertise on TV with CTV, right? You don't need to buy nationwide ads. You can have, local ads. Now, our platform specifically has something we call DCO, right? So DCO is the dynamic content optimization based on AI, which means that every TV would see something different,
Mm.
right? We had an amazing campaign for Golden Curl across the United States. And each TV, you saw their ad and you saw a map. How much time would that take you to get to their local restaurant? And would that be faster for you to go there and eat versus to buy groceries and cook? But every TV saw something different, right? So the fact that you now have this dynamic ability to buy locally, it's just, it just brings out of home and TV ads to the mass, right? Everybody can do that now. It's not very expensive. So I would suggest all marketers to look at it as an opportunity.
Yeah, I know I had a lot of Golden Corral in college, and if I would have seen a map on how close it was, I would have more frequently. But I think that it hits on also marketers spending their time on what is that creative, what is the message, what's really going to resonate when they see this, as opposed to, again, thinking about the channel itself. Um, so I have been dying to ask this question. We're almost at the end, so I'm going to. Like you said, you've been in digital marketing for a very long time. You have always been at this intersection of tech. You have a very unique ability to be truly visionary and see what's coming next. When you look back at your journey, what have been some of the most transformative changes you've seen? And what have you learned from those changes as you lead Perion now?
That's a big question.
I know.
Um, what get me excited is to find big changes at the initial stages. So, for example, I can't remember, but maybe 20 years ago, when search engine Google just started and it went from Alta Vista to an actual search engine, first time that an advertiser can find somebody who actually typed in exactly what he wanted. The people that figured out that this is a great platform back then made a lot of money and pushed a lot of creatives. Now it's a very well optimized platform, so it's extremely hard to optimize it. Um, social, when social began, everybody that knew about it at the beginning were able to tap into basically free media. Just everything became viral, right? Now it's harder. I would argue that TikTok advertising platform is still at that stage where you can still buy great audience, not very expensive. I think Pinterest is great, but I also think advertisers should look beyond that, should figure out. Um, well, it all depends on how much budget you have, right? If you have a small budget, I would focus on a small niche, but if you have a bigger one, just optimize better based on AI. So not everybody has that capability, but you can use companies like us, or you can have, a lot of AI chatbot like Claude can run pretty cool algorithm of just trying to figure out what do you do, right? How do you optimize between stuff? I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. So there was just an announcement this week too about how you've applied some of these lessons, and again, using AI as a tool to really elevate marketing and marketing leaders' creativity and allow them more thinking around the audience. But tell me a little bit about what is Perion One strategy and what are you most looking forward to as that rolls out?
So our strategy and our platform is again planning, helping you to plan your entire campaign on the multiverse of platforms. It might be social, it might be open web, it might be audio. We're doing a lot of work with Spotify and iHeart, so we're also in audio. We have probably the most sophisticated out of home programmatic out of home planning tool and DSP and SSP. So everything under one roof and under one platform, and then letting our algorithm basically helping you figuring out how to optimize better in between channels, right? So that's the goal. Instead of having silos and currently you need an army to buy on Meta and an army to buy on Google and an army to buy on YouTube and an army to buy on search. Our goal is to basically instead having only one army on one platform.
That is, I mean, it's pretty revolutionary because then you'll be able to get a better view of what's working, what's not, and allow the AI to optimize. I think that having specialists who move money around is not really deep critical thinking. What is deep critical thinking is if I want to get more local, Spotify does a great job in local marketing, but now I can really think about what does that local creative look like across all the platforms. I don't have to have just that singular view of like, okay, now I'm going to have this format here. And I love the point you made earlier that a lot of people are buying in store. And I think that as there's so much digital, it's in our pockets. So having connected out of home TV and social, that is what I'm walking in with into the store. I got there. That's where I'm looking for my feedback and review. So I like that Perion is taking out all of the tasks, and where marketers can lean into is what experience are they trying to give that person while they're in the store, knowing that that experience includes media and digital media marketing in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people also do not, marketers do not realize that screens within stores are also assets that they can use.
Mm.
So, and that's a great asset.
Yeah, and I think the interaction between those will become even more interesting, the smarter AI gets, and even layering in voice at the service level. That could be really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We've launched about a year ago, we launched a new product called Wave, which is generative AI for audio ads,
Hmm.
which for some reason we're the only one who's doing that. I don't know why, because in the US, there's $8 billion going through digital ads every year, but people still go to studios to record them. So what we do is we take from retailers, we take hundreds of thousands of promotions, might be a promotion for a banana and then a promotion for an avocado, and hundreds of thousands of those locally, and we push that into our generative AI engine, and it creates with the right voices and the right pace, it's hundreds of thousands of audio ads. Now it sounds as if you have somebody in a studio that records them. And now you can push that into Spotify and iHeart, targeted into the right audience at the right time and even at the right location next to that store. And again, we're pushing that toward to stores themselves. So you would hear that within the store as well. And that's all generative AI.
Yeah, that is very smart. So we are at the end of time, but before we go, is there one last takeaway you would want marketers to have from this conversation?
Uh, I think it's time for us to change how marketing works. 100 years back, someone said, I know half my budgets are a waste. I just don't know which half." I think it's still the case, and I think it's time that we would stop wasting money and start investing in understanding exactly what we get for our money. And that would only come from unifying, data points, unifying platforms, and understanding better what do we actually get, and not going after buzzwords just to do them.
Yes, I agree. And on that note, Tal, we are so honored to have you in our ModOp community. And thank you so much for taking the time today for this conversation. If people want to follow you on LinkedIn or reach out to you, what's the best way to reach you?
On LinkedIn, that's the best way.
Yeah, and I did point that out earlier because your career is fascinating, but also the other interviews you do, there's always these great little nuggets. And I advise any marketer who really wants to help lead teams that lean into the future, but in the right ways, follow Tal. So thank you again. And for listeners who want to hear more episodes from Leader Generation, visit us at modop.com. That's MODOP.com. And until next time, I'm your host, Tessa Burg.